Maya Shun walked through those glass doors with calloused knuckles hidden in her jacket pockets, not knowing that her first week at Westfield High would end with 3 bullies on the ground and a viral video that would change everything. What started as a cruel prank would become the most epic mistake these mean girls ever made. Because sometimes the quiet new student carries secrets that can shatter your world in seconds. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. A California sun blazed through the towering palm trees. As Maya stepped onto the sprawling campus of Westfield High School, her worn black backpack slung over one shoulder. The Mediterranean-style buildings stretched across manicured lawns where students clustered in their familiar groups, their voices creating a symphony of teenage chatter that felt both welcoming and foreign. After spending 16 years in Chicago's harsh winters, this sunny paradise seemed almost surreal, like stepping into a different universe entirely. Maya's dark hair caught the morning light as she paused near the main fountain, pulling out her phone to double-check her schedule. Advanced biology, AP literature, world history, then lunch. Her mother had warned her that California schools would be different from the gritty urban campus she'd left behind, but nothing could have prepared her for the culture shock of palm trees and perfect lawns replacing concrete and chain-link fences. Students flowed past her in designer clothes and expensive sneakers, their conversations peppered with references to beach parties and weekend trips to Los Angeles. Maya tugged at her simple black hoodie, suddenly conscious of how plain she must appear among this sea of California gold. Back in Chicago, blending in had been survival. Here, it seemed like everyone was competing to stand out. The warning bell echoed across campus, sending streams of students toward various buildings. Maya followed the crowd toward the science wing, her eyes scanning the faces around her. These weren't the hardened expressions she was used to seeing in her old school's hallways. These students looked softer somehow, more carefree, as if the biggest worry in their lives was which party to attend on Friday night. She found her biology classroom and slipped inside, claiming a seat near the window where she could observe without drawing attention. The teacher, Mr. Henderson, welcomed her with genuine warmth that caught her off guard. In Chicago, new students were barely acknowledged, left to sink or swim in the social currents. Here, several classmates actually smiled at her, though their curiosity was obvious in their lingering glances. During the break between classes, Maya navigated the outdoor corridors, marveling at how different this felt from her old school's cramped hallways. Students lounged on benches under flowering trees, their laughter echoing off the stucco walls. Everything seemed lighter here, from the architecture to the attitudes, and Maya found herself relaxing slightly as she made her way to literature class. The morning passed without incident, each teacher introducing her to the class with encouraging words about making her feel welcome. By lunchtime, Maya had begun to think that maybe this transition wouldn't be as difficult as she'd feared. California teenagers seemed genuinely friendlier than their Midwest counterparts, more open to accepting newcomers into their social fabric. The outdoor lunch pavilion buzzed with activity as Maya emerged from the food line, her tray balanced carefully as she searched for an empty table. The space was divided into invisible territories, each group claiming their section with the confidence of long-time ownership. The athletes dominated the tables nearest the gymnasium, their letterman jackets creating a wall of school pride. Academic achievers clustered near the library entrance, textbooks scattered between their lunch containers. The art students had claimed the shaded area near the drama building, their animated conversations punctuated by bursts of creative energy. Maya spotted an empty table at the pavilion's edge, away from the main social clusters, but close enough to observe the intricate dynamics at play. She settled into her seat, unwrapping the sandwich her mother had packed that morning, along with a note wishing her luck on her first day. The familiar taste of her mom's cooking provided comfort in this sea of unfamiliarity. As she ate, Maya's trained eyes automatically cataloged her surroundings, a habit developed through years of martial arts practice, where awareness could mean the difference between victory and defeat. She noticed the subtle power structures, the way certain students commanded attention while others faded into the background. The social hierarchy here seemed less brutal than Chicago's, but no less complex. That's when she first spotted Jessica Parker. The blonde girl moved through the pavilion like royalty, her designer outfit perfectly coordinated and her smile bright enough to power the entire campus. Students parted naturally to let her pass, some offering greetings that were returned with calculated warmth. Two girls flanked her like ladies in waiting, one tall and athletic with fierce dark eyes, the other shorter and nervous, constantly seeking approval through eager nods and forced laughter. Maya watched as Jessica surveyed the lunch scene, her gaze sharp and assessing. This was clearly someone accustomed to being the center of attention, comfortable with the power that came from social dominance. When Jessica's eyes swept past Maya's table, there was a moment of evaluation, the kind of look predators give potential prey before deciding whether they're worth the hunt. The interaction was brief, barely a heartbeat, but Maya felt the weight of that assessment. She'd seen similar looks before, in tournament brackets where opponents sized each other up before stepping onto the mat. The difference was, Jessica had no idea what she was looking at. She saw a quiet new girl eating alone, unremarkable and vulnerable. What she didn't see were the calluses on Maya's knuckles, the controlled way she moved, or the stillness that came from years of disciplined training. Maya finished her lunch. In peaceful silence, watching the social dynamics play out around her while keeping her own secrets safely hidden. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to navigate this foreign social landscape. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. For now she was content to observe and learn, gathering information the way her father had taught her to study opponents before a match. The afternoon sun climbed higher, casting shorter shadows across the pavilion as students began clearing their tables. Maya rose, shouldering her backpack with the same quiet confidence that had carried her through countless competitions. Westfield High might be different from Chicago, but teenagers were teenagers everywhere. She just needed to find her place in this new ecosystem. What Maya didn't know was that Jessica Parker had already decided where that place would be. Jessica Parker had ruled Westfield High for 3 years with the precision of a military strategist and the charm of a Hollywood starlet. Her domain stretched from the pristine cheerleading mats in the gymnasium to the coveted senior parking spots, where her cherry-red BMW convertible sat like a throne among lesser vehicles. Every morning, she arrived precisely 15 minutes before first period, not because she needed the extra time, but because her entrance required an audience. Her father, Richard Parker, owned half the commercial real estate in Riverside and sat on the school board, a fact that Jessica wielded like a golden sword when lesser mortals dared to challenge her authority. Teachers smiled at her with the particular warmth reserved for students whose parents could fund new computer labs or sponsor championship banners. Principal Davis had learned long ago that keeping Jessica happy meant keeping her influential father satisfied, a lesson that trickled down through every aspect of school politics. The architecture of Jessica's power rested on 2 carefully chosen pillars. Ashley Rodriguez served as her primary enforcer, a role that suited her competitive nature perfectly. Standing nearly 6 feet tall with broad shoulders earned through years of varsity volleyball, Ashley commanded respect through physical presence alone. Her dark eyes could silence whispers across crowded hallways, and her reputation for explosive temper kept potential troublemakers in line. Unlike Jessica's calculated cruelty, Ashley's intimidation felt raw and immediate, like a storm cloud ready to unleash lightning. Ashley had earned her position through unwavering loyalty and a willingness to get her hands dirty when Jessica preferred to maintain plausible deniability. She handled the physical aspects of their social enforcement, the shoulder checks in, hallways, and the intimidating stares that made underclassmen scatter like startled birds. Her athleticism gave weight to every threat, and her genuine enjoyment of conflict made her the perfect weapon in Jessica's arsenal. Madison Walsh occupied the third position in their trinity, though her role required more delicate navigation. Shorter and rounder than her companions, Madison compensated for her physical inadequacies with desperate enthusiasm and an encyclopedic knowledge of school gossip. Her nervous energy manifested in constant chatter and an eagerness to please that bordered on pathetic, but Jessica found her useful for information gathering and maintaining the group's social intelligence network. Madison's insecurity made her hungry for acceptance, willing to perform any task or betray any confidence to maintain her precious spot in Jessica's inner circle. She understood that her position was the most precarious, that she served at Jessica's pleasure and could be discarded the moment she ceased being useful. This knowledge drove her to ever greater heights of sycophantic behavior, creating a feedback loop that both amused and disgusted Jessica in equal measure. The trio had perfected their system over years of practice, moving through Westfield's social landscape like a well-oiled machine. Jessica provided the vision and strategy. Ashley supplied the muscle and intimidation, while Madison gathered intelligence and handled the smaller acts of sabotage that kept their enemies off balance. Together, they controlled everything from homecoming court selections to which parties received social approval, their influence extending far beyond the school's boundaries into the broader teenage social ecosystem of Riverside. Their power operated on multiple levels, from the obvious displays of wealth and status to the more subtle manipulations of social dynamics. Jessica's wardrobe alone cost more than most families spent on groceries in a month, each outfit carefully chosen to reinforce her position at the apex of teenage fashion. Her Instagram account boasted 15,000 followers, a number that translated directly into social currency within the school's walls. But Jessica's true genius lay in her understanding of human psychology, her ability to identify weakness and exploit it with surgical precision. She could spot insecurity from across a crowded hallway, sensing the desperate need for acceptance that drove most teenage behavior. Her cruelty was never random or emotional. It was calculated and purposeful, designed to maintain the delicate balance of fear and admiration that kept her subjects in line. The cafeteria served as her daily court, where she held audience with the various social factions seeking her approval or attempting to avoid her wrath. Underclassmen watched her table with the fascination typically reserved for celebrity sightings, while her contemporaries monitored her mood for signs of shifting alliances or emerging opportunities. Even the teachers seemed aware of her presence, their eyes occasionally drifting toward her corner of the pavilion as if checking on some exotic and potentially dangerous creature. Jessica's morning routine included a careful survey of her domain, noting new faces and potential threats with the thoroughness of a security expert. She cataloged fashion choices, observed social interactions, and filed away information that might prove useful in future campaigns. Her success depended on maintaining complete awareness of her environment, understanding every variable that might affect her carefully constructed empire. When Maya Chun appeared in her peripheral vision during lunch, Jessica's predatory instincts activated immediately. New students represented both opportunity and danger, fresh blood that could either strengthen her position or challenge her authority. The girl's isolation marked her as vulnerable, but something about her posture suggested hidden depths that warranted closer examination. Jessica studied Maya with the focused attention of a chess master evaluating an opponent's opening move. The newcomer's clothing was unremarkable, her demeanor quiet and unassuming, yet there was something in her stillness that felt different from typical teenage awkwardness. Most new students projected nervousness or desperate eagerness to fit in, but Maya seemed almost serene in her solitude, as if she possessed some internal compass that made external validation unnecessary. Ashley noticed Jessica's interest and followed her gaze toward Maya's table. Her volleyball instincts kicked in, automatically assessing potential threats with the ruthless efficiency of an elite athlete. The new girl looked small and unthreatening, but Ashley had learned to trust Jessica's radar for detecting hidden challenges to their supremacy. Madison, ever eager to prove her worth, immediately began gathering intelligence on the newcomer. Her network of gossips and social media stalkers would have a complete dossier on Maya Chun within hours, every detail of her background scrutinized for potential ammunition or weakness. The anticipation of a new campaign energized Madison, giving her purpose and direction that her chaotic personality desperately craved. "I appreciate the fashion advice," Maya responded carefully, "but I'm pretty comfortable with my style choices." The refusal to submit triggered something predatory in Jessica's perfectly composed features. She had expected capitulation, tears, or at least visible discomfort from her target. Instead, Maya sat calmly eating her lunch as if this confrontation was merely a minor interruption rather than a social execution. The lack of fear was clearly frustrating Jessica's carefully planned psychological assault. Ashley stepped closer, her athletic frame casting a shadow across Maya's table as she leaned in with barely concealed menace. The physical intimidation was more direct now, abandoning subtlety in favor of raw presence. Madison giggled nervously, her phone capturing every moment while she provided excited commentary for her social media followers. "Maybe you didn't hear Jessica correctly," Ashley growled, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to physical dominance. "She's trying to help you avoid making a huge mistake. New girls who don't listen to good advice tend to have a really hard time fitting in around here." The threat was explicit now, hanging in the air like smoke from a warning shot. Maya felt her body automatically shifting into a more balanced position, her weight distributing evenly as muscle memory from thousands of hours of training began asserting itself. The movement was subtle, invisible to casual observers, but unmistakable to anyone who understood combat dynamics. "I heard her just fine," Maya said quietly, her tone remaining steady despite the escalating aggression surrounding her. "And I said I'm comfortable with my choices." Jessica's patience finally snapped at this continued defiance of her authority. In her experience, sustained pressure always eventually broke down resistance, but Maya seemed immune to the psychological tactics that had proven so effective against previous targets. The newcomer's calm was infuriating, suggesting either stupidity or hidden strength that Jessica couldn't identify. "You know what?" Jessica announced loudly, ensuring maximum audience for whatever was about to happen. "I think Maya needs a practical demonstration of how things work at Westfield High. Sometimes actions speak louder than words, especially for people who don't seem to understand helpful suggestions." The pavilion had gone noticeably quieter now, conversations dying as students sensed that something significant was about to occur. Phone cameras multiplied like electronic vultures, their operators anticipating viral content that would dominate social media feeds for days to come. Maya found herself at the center of a digital coliseum, with Jessica preparing to deliver what she clearly expected would be a humiliating defeat. What Jessica Parker didn't realize was that she had just challenged someone whose father had spent 16 years preparing her for exactly this kind of moment. The tension in the pavilion reached a breaking point as Jessica's words hung in the air like a challenge issued before ancient combat. Maya sensed the shift in energy around her, the way conversations had completely ceased and all attention focused on their corner of the outdoor space. She recognized this moment from her father's teachings about conflict escalation, the precise instant when verbal aggression transforms into physical action. Her breathing remained steady, but every muscle in her body prepared for what was coming next. Jessica's plan revealed itself with theatrical flair as she positioned herself directly in front of Maya's table while Ashley circled behind. The strategy was obvious to anyone who understood pack hunting dynamics, designed to create confusion and prevent escape while maximizing the humiliation factor for their intended victim. Madison had her phone ready, practically vibrating with excitement at the prospect of capturing what she clearly expected to be Maya's complete social destruction. "You see, Maya," Jessica announced with the confidence of someone who had never faced real resistance, "sometimes new students need a special welcome to help them understand the social structure here. Consider this your official initiation into Westfield High reality." The attack came without further warning as Ashley lunged forward, her hands reaching for the waistband of Maya's jeans in an attempt to execute the classic pantsing maneuver that had humiliated countless victims in high school cafeterias across America. The move was designed to be swift and overwhelming, leaving the target exposed and helpless while the entire pavilion witnessed their degradation. Ashley's athletic training gave her confidence in her speed and coordination, expecting to complete the humiliation before Maya could even process what was happening. What happened next defied every expectation in that sun-drenched California pavilion. Maya's response was instantaneous and devastating in its precision. As Ashley's hands approached her waistband, Maya's body moved with fluid grace that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Her right hand intercepted Ashley's wrist with a grip that locked the attacking arm in place, while her left hand positioned itself at Ashley's elbow joint with surgical accuracy. The leverage was perfect, turning Ashley's forward momentum against her in a way that sent the larger girl stumbling backward with a yelp of surprise and pain. The movement was so smooth and controlled that many observers missed its technical brilliance, seeing only Ashley's sudden awkward retreat and confused expression. But those who understood martial arts recognized the devastating efficiency of what they had witnessed. Maya had neutralized an aggressive attack from a physically superior opponent without appearing to exert any effort whatsoever, as if Ashley had simply lost her balance through her own clumsiness. Ashley stared at her wrist in shock, feeling the lingering effects of pressure points she didn't even know existed. The confident smirk had vanished from her face, replaced by genuine bewilderment at how her straightforward assault had been so effortlessly countered. Her volleyball instincts told her that something extraordinary had just occurred, but her inexperience with actual combat left her unable to process exactly what Maya had done to neutralize her attack. Jessica's perfectly composed mask slipped for just an instant, revealing genuine surprise beneath her calculated cruelty. She had orchestrated dozens of similar humiliations over the years, and they always followed the same predictable script. The victim would panic, struggle ineffectively, and ultimately submit to the inevitable embarrassment while the audience laughed and recorded their downfall. Jessica's smile never wavered as she processed this new information, but her mind was already working through possibilities and strategies. Maya Chun had just entered a game whose rules had been written long before her arrival, a contest where Jessica held every advantage and controlled every variable. The newcomer's fate would depend entirely on how quickly she learned to navigate Westfield's social hierarchy and where she chose to position herself within its rigid structure. The lunch period was drawing to a close, but Jessica felt energized by the prospect of a new challenge. Tomorrow would bring fresh opportunities to establish the natural order, to remind everyone why she remained unchallenged at the top of Westfield's social pyramid. Maya Sheen would learn, as so many others had before her, that resistance was futile in the face of Jessica's perfectly orchestrated dominance. The second day at Westfield High brought overcast skies that seemed to mirror Maya's cautious mood. As she navigated the familiar routine of finding her classes and settling into the rhythm of California high school life, the morning had passed uneventfully, with teachers continuing their welcoming introductions and classmates offering polite smiles that felt genuine enough. Maya found herself beginning to relax, thinking that perhaps her mother's optimism about this fresh start might actually prove correct. During third period, a P literature, She'd even participated in a discussion about character motivation in Shakespeare, earning an approving nod from Mrs. Patterson and curious glances from her classmates. The academic environment felt refreshingly challenging compared to her previous school, where survival often took precedence over intellectual engagement. Here, students actually seemed interested in learning, their questions thoughtful rather than designed to waste time or create disruption. By lunchtime, Maya had developed a tentative routine. She collected her meal from the cafeteria line, exchanging pleasant small talk with the serving staff, who remembered her name from the previous day. The outdoor pavilion beckoned with its promise of sunshine and people-watching opportunities, a stark contrast to the cramped indoor cafeterias of her Chicago experience. She chose the same corner table as before, appreciating the vantage point it provided for observing the complex social ecosystem that surrounded her. The familiar rhythm of teenage lunch hour unfolded around her as Maya unpacked her meal and opened her notebook to review afternoon assignments. Students flowed between tables, their conversations creating a comfortable background hum that felt almost musical in the California air. She found herself sketching absent-mindedly in the margins of her history notes, her pencil capturing the architectural details of the pavilion's Spanish-style columns and the way shadows fell across the outdoor space. Maya's artistic focus was interrupted by approaching footsteps, their deliberate cadence different from the casual wandering of typical lunch traffic. She looked up to see Jessica Parker advancing toward her table with Ashley and Madison flanking her like generals preparing for battle. The trio moved with synchronized purpose that immediately set Maya's instincts on high alert, though she kept her expression carefully neutral. Jessica's smile was blindingly white as she reached Maya's table, her perfectly manicured fingers drumming against her designer purse with barely contained energy. The calculated nature of her approach was obvious to anyone who understood predatory behavior, but the surrounding students seemed oblivious to the tension crackling in the air. Conversations continued at nearby tables, their occupants either unaware of the brewing confrontation or deliberately avoiding involvement. "Maya, right?" Jessica's voice carried across the pavilion with practiced projection, immediately drawing attention from curious onlookers. "I'm Jessica Parker, and these are my friends Ashley and Madison. We wanted to officially welcome you to Westfield High and make sure you understand how things work around here." The words themselves seemed innocent enough, but Maya caught the underlying steel beneath Jessica's sugar-sweet delivery. This wasn't a friendly introduction. It was a territorial display designed to establish dominance and test boundaries. Maya had encountered similar challenges in her previous school, though they typically involved more direct physical intimidation rather than this sophisticated psychological warfare. Ashley positioned herself slightly behind Maya's chair, her volleyball-trained reflexes coiled and ready for action. The positioning was strategic, cutting off potential escape routes while maintaining plausible deniability about aggressive intent. Madison hovered nearby, her phone already in her hand as if preparing to document whatever was about to unfold for later social media distribution. Maya set down her pencil and met Jessica's gaze directly, her own expression remaining calm despite the obvious threat assessment happening in her peripheral vision. Years of tournament competition had taught her to read opponents quickly, identifying their strengths and weaknesses within seconds of initial contact. Jessica radiated confidence bordering on arrogance. Ashley projected raw physical capability, while Madison seemed nervous and eager to please her companions. "Thanks for the welcome," Maya replied evenly, her voice carrying just enough politeness to avoid giving Jessica obvious ammunition for escalation. "I'm still figuring things out, but everyone's been pretty friendly so far." Jessica's smile faltered slightly at Maya's composed response, clearly expecting more deference or nervousness from her target. The script wasn't playing out according to her expectations, a development that seemed to energize rather than discourage her predatory instincts. She exchanged a quick glance with Ashley, some unspoken communication passing between them that made Maya's martial arts training kick into higher awareness. "Well, since you're new, let me give you some helpful advice about fitting in here," Jessica continued, her tone shifting subtly toward condescension. "California girls have certain standards, you know. We care about appearance, about presentation. That whole Chicago grunge thing you've got going might need some updating if you want to make friends." The insults were delivered with surgical precision, designed to wound while maintaining plausible deniability about cruel intent. Maya recognized the technique immediately, having witnessed similar attacks countless times in her previous school. The difference was that Westfield's version came wrapped in designer clothing and perfect teeth, making it somehow more insidious than honest brutality. Students at nearby tables had begun to notice the confrontation, their conversations tapering off as they sensed drama brewing in their midst. Phone cameras started appearing with the inevitable inevitability of teenage social media culture, ready to capture whatever moment of humiliation Jessica was orchestrating for her entertainment. Maya's calm competence shattered that familiar pattern completely. The pavilion buzzed with confused murmurs as students tried to understand what they had witnessed. Phone cameras continued recording, but their operators seemed uncertain about what exactly they were capturing. The expected moment of viral humiliation had transformed into something entirely different, though most observers lacked the knowledge to recognize the martial arts mastery they had just seen demonstrated. Maya remained seated at her table, her posture relaxed and her expression neutral, as if she had simply brushed away an annoying insect rather than defended herself against a coordinated attack. Her lunch sat undisturbed before her, not a single item displaced by the brief but intense confrontation. The contrast between her serene demeanor and Ashley's shaken confusion was stark enough to register even with casual observers. Madison's excited giggling had died in her throat as she realized that her anticipated social media triumph had somehow gone completely wrong. Her phone continued recording, but the footage showed Maya sitting calmly while Ashley stumbled backward, looking foolish and defeated. This wasn't the content she had expected to capture, and her social media instincts warned her that posting this video might backfire spectacularly on Jessica's reputation. The silence stretched as Jessica processed this unexpected development, her strategic mind racing through possible responses to salvage the situation. Public humiliation required a victim who would actually be humiliated, but Maya seemed utterly unfazed by the attempted attack. Worse, Ashley now appeared weak and incompetent, undermining the fear-based authority that underpinned Jessica's entire power structure. "What the hell just happened?" Ashley demanded, her voice carrying more confusion than anger as she unconsciously rubbed her wrist. The physical sensations were unlike anything she had experienced in years of competitive athletics, suggesting techniques and knowledge that existed completely outside her frame of reference. Maya finally spoke, her voice carrying the same calm politeness she had maintained throughout the encounter. "You tripped," she said simply, offering Ashley a face-saving explanation that demonstrated remarkable emotional intelligence. "Maybe you should be more careful walking around tables." The graceful deflection was masterful in its simplicity, providing Ashley with a way to retreat without losing all dignity while simultaneously making it clear that Maya was offering mercy rather than ignorance. Those who understood social dynamics recognized the sophisticated nature of Maya's response, but Jessica only saw continued defiance of her authority. Jessica's anger flared at this persistent refusal to submit to her will. Every instinct screamed that she needed to escalate rather than retreat, that allowing Maya to emerge unscathed from this confrontation would signal weakness to her subjects and encourage future challenges to her rule. Her reputation as Westfield's undisputed queen bee depended on decisive victories over potential rivals, not mysterious standoffs that left observers confused about who had actually won. "This isn't over," Jessica hissed, her voice dropping to a whisper that carried more menace than her earlier theatrical pronouncements. Nobody disrespects me and my friends at this school. Nobody." Maya met Jessica's furious gaze with steady calm, her dark eyes revealing nothing of her internal thoughts or emotions. The promise of escalating conflict hung between them like electricity before a thunderstorm, both girls understanding that this first skirmish had established battle lines for a much larger war. As Jessica turned and stalked away with her shaken companions, Maya calmly returned to her lunch and her notebook sketching. The pavilion gradually returned to its normal rhythm of teenage conversation, though many students continued stealing glances at the quiet new girl who had somehow emerged victorious from an encounter with Westfield's most feared social predator. What they didn't know was that Maya's father had spent 16 years preparing her for moments exactly like this one, and that Jessica Parker had just declared war on someone whose training had always assumed that failure meant far more than social embarrassment. The real battle was only beginning. The next morning arrived with Jessica Parker's fury burning hotter than the California sun. Her sleepless night had been spent replaying the humiliating encounter in the pavilion, analyzing every detail of Maya's mysterious defensive capabilities and plotting elaborate revenge scenarios that would restore her damaged reputation. The quiet new girl had made Jessica look weak in front of her subjects, a transgression that demanded swift and overwhelming retaliation to maintain the delicate balance of fear and respect that kept Westfield High under her control. Jessica's bedroom walls were covered with cheerleading trophies and homecoming photos that documented her reign as Westfield's undisputed social sovereign. But this morning they felt like monuments to a crumbling empire. She stared at her reflection in the vanity mirror, applying makeup with mechanical precision, while her mind churned through possible strategies for destroying Maya Xing's growing mystique before it could threaten her carefully constructed hierarchy. Ashley arrived early for their preschool strategy session, her wrist still bearing faint marks from Maya's grip, despite her attempts to dismiss the encounter as a lucky accident. The volleyball star's confidence had been genuinely shaken by her inability to understand how Maya had neutralized her attack so effortlessly. But loyalty to Jessica and wounded pride demanded another attempt at establishing dominance through superior force. Madison brought intelligence gathered from her network of gossips and social media investigators, though the results were frustratingly sparse. Maya Chun had maintained an almost ghostly digital presence, with no Instagram drama, no Facebook oversharing, and no TikTok videos revealing embarrassing secrets that could be weaponized for maximum humiliation. The girl seemed to exist in some parallel universe where teenagers didn't broadcast their entire lives for public consumption. "She's from Chicago," Madison reported eagerly, spreading printed screenshots across Jessica's pristine bedspread like a general reviewing battlefield maps. "Single mom, dad died when she was young, moved here because her mother got a job at Riverside General Hospital. But that's literally all I could find. No social media history, no drama, no ex-boyfriends posting bitter stories. It's like she's been living under a rock." Jessica studied the meager information with growing frustration, recognizing that Maya's digital invisibility made traditional character assassination nearly impossible. The usual weapons in her arsenal required ammunition in the form of embarrassing photos, compromising messages, or scandalous rumors that could be amplified through social media echo chambers. Maya's clean slate presented an unprecedented challenge that would require more creative solutions. The plan that emerged from their morning war council was ambitious in its scope and cruel in its execution. Jessica decided that if Maya wouldn't provide ready-made humiliation material, they would create an unforgettable scene that would establish once and for all who controlled Westfield High's social ecosystem. The setting would be the gymnasium during lunch period, when maximum witnesses could observe Maya's complete destruction and spread the story throughout the school's interconnected social networks. Ashley's role would be more aggressive this time, her volleyball training channeled into a coordinated physical assault that would overwhelm Maya before she could deploy whatever mysterious defensive techniques had saved her in the pavilion. Madison would ensure comprehensive documentation of the encounter, with multiple camera angles capturing every moment of Maya's anticipated defeat for later viral distribution across social media platforms. The trap was set during fourth period, when Madison approached Maya with an Oscar-worthy performance of nervous concern, claiming that someone had been spreading cruel rumors about her family's financial situation. The bait was carefully crafted to appeal to Maya's protective instincts while luring her to the gymnasium under the pretense of confronting the alleged rumor-monger in private. Maya recognized the obvious setup immediately: her father's training. Having included extensive lessons about recognizing ambush tactics and psychological manipulation. But rather than avoiding the confrontation, she saw an opportunity to end Jessica's harassment campaign definitively while teaching Westfield High a lesson about underestimating quiet newcomers who carried themselves with unusual confidence. The gymnasium felt cavernous and echoing as Maya entered through the side door, her footsteps ringing against the polished hardwood floor. Afternoon sunlight streamed through high windows, creating dramatic shadows that would provide perfect lighting for whatever Jessica had planned. Maya's enhanced awareness cataloged potential weapons, escape routes, and tactical advantages while maintaining an outwardly casual demeanor. Jessica emerged from behind the bleachers with Ashley and Madison flanking her like lieutenants preparing for battle, their coordinated approach suggesting careful choreography rather than spontaneous confrontation. The trio moved with predatory confidence, convinced that their numerical advantage and choice of isolated battlefield would guarantee victory over their increasingly troublesome target. "Surprise, Maya," Jessica announced with theatrical flourish, her voice echoing off the gymnasium walls. "We thought it was time for a private conversation about your attitude problem. See, Westfield High has certain traditions about respecting established social structures, and new students who don't learn their place quickly tend to have very unpleasant experiences." Ashley cracked her knuckles with anticipation, her athletic frame coiled for explosive action as she positioned herself to cut off Maya's retreat toward the main entrance. Madison held her phone ready, practically vibrating with excitement at the prospect of capturing Jessica's triumphant reassertion of dominance over the mysterious newcomer who had dared to challenge their authority. Maya stood quietly in the bay, center of the gymnasium floor, her posture relaxed but balanced in a way that suggested readiness rather than resignation. The familiar environment reminded her of countless tournament floors where she had faced opponents who underestimated her capabilities based on her size and apparent youth. The difference was that those competitors had at least understood they were entering a martial arts contest, while Jessica's crew remained blissfully ignorant about the true nature of their target. "I'm listening," Maya said calmly, her voice carrying clearly through the empty space. "What exactly did you want to discuss?" The measured response infuriated Jessica, who had expected fear or pleading that would validate her position as Westfield's apex predator. Maya's continued composure suggested either stupidity or hidden strength, and Jessica's instincts warned her that stupidity was becoming an increasingly unlikely explanation for the new girl's behavior. Ashley moved first, her volleyball trained reflexes launching her toward Maya with the explosive power that had made her a dominant force on the court. The attack was designed to be overwhelming and decisive, using superior size and athleticism to end the confrontation before Maya could mount any effective defense. Ashley's hands reached for Maya's shoulders, intending to drive her to the ground and establish physical dominance through superior force. What happened next transformed the gymnasium into a martial arts demonstration that would have impressed Maya's deceased father and horrified Jessica's social media audience. Maya's response was a masterpiece of applied physics and years of disciplined training. As Ashley's hands approached her shoulders, Maya stepped slightly to the side while simultaneously grabbing Ashley's right wrist and placing her left hand at the attacking elbow. The technique was a classic Shotokan throw that redirected Ashley's forward momentum in a graceful arc that sent the larger girl flying through the air, before landing hard on the gymnasium floor with a resounding crash. The throw was executed with such fluid precision that it appeared almost choreographed, as if Ashley had simply run into an invisible wall that redirected her energy back against herself. Maya had used minimal force while maximizing leverage, allowing Ashley's own aggressive momentum to provide the power for her spectacular defeat. Jessica and Madison stood frozen in shock as Ashley struggled to her feet, her confidence shattered and her understanding of physical reality fundamentally challenged. The volleyball star had never encountered resistance that felt so effortless, yet so devastatingly effective, leaving her questioning everything she thought she knew about combat and dominance. "My father was Sensei David Chen," Maya said quietly, her voice carrying new authority as she finally revealed the truth about her background. "He owned Dragon's Den Dojo in Chicago and trained me from the time I could walk. I've been Illinois state champion in youth karate for 3 consecutive years, with a 4th-degree black belt in Shotokan and tournament victories against opponents twice my size." The revelation hit Jessica like a physical blow as she realized the catastrophic magnitude of her miscalculation. She had declared war on a trained fighter whose skills existed in a completely different universe from high school social maneuvering, someone whose father had spent 16 years preparing her for exactly this kind of confrontation. Madison's phone continued recording as Maya demonstrated additional techniques with casual precision, her movements flowing like deadly poetry as she showed Jessica and her crew exactly why challenging unknown opponents without proper intelligence was a recipe for disaster. Each technique was controlled and non-lethal, designed to educate rather than seriously injure, but their combined effect was overwhelming in its demonstration of superior skill and preparation. By the time the brief exhibition was complete, Jessica Parker's reign as Westfield High's undisputed queen had effectively ended. Word of Maya's martial arts mastery spread through social media channels faster than wildfire, transforming her from mysterious newcomer into legendary figure, whose quiet confidence now made perfect sense to previously confused observers. Maya walked out of that gymnasium as Westfield High's new apex predator, though she had no intention of ruling through fear like her predecessor. Her father had taught her that true strength protected others rather than exploiting them, a lesson that would guide her interactions with the school's complex social ecosystem for years to come. Jessica Parker learned the hardest lesson of her privileged life that day, discovering that some battles should never be started, because victory is impossible when facing opponents whose preparation exists on an entirely different level than high school social warfare. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.